Have you ever felt the sting of being abandoned? Not just by strangers, but by your own family. What does a woman do when the train that should have
Too
carried her
fat
to a
to
new
marry.
life leaves her behind? In shame mocked as too fat to marry, the train roared past, leaving behind a massive cloud of steam and coal smoke. The piercing whistle faded, then fell silent, leaving only a heavy stillness hanging over the lonely station in Wyoming. The wind howled across the barren grasslands, carrying the scent of dry earth and solitude. Clara, 24, stood there alone, with nothing but an old suitcase and a heart weighted with fear and despair gnawing at her. Just weeks ago, her world had been the crowded streets and tall buildings of New York. She was a plump young woman with a kind heart, gifted at embroidery, and an excellent cook. Life had not been easy, but she had accepted a proposal by letter from a wealthy landowner in the West named Jasper. The proposal wasn't for love, but for a new beginning, a chance at a different life. She dreamed of a warm home, a family, and a husband who would cherish her. She had carried with her everything she owned, along with every fragile hope for the future. But when she arrived, her dreams shattered. Jasper was not there. Instead, her brother, who had accompanied her on the long journey, handed her a letter. It was short, but its words were merciless and cold. "I cannot accept a woman so fat, and so I cannot marry you. Please return home." The world collapsed around her. She looked at her brother and saw only shame and fear in his eyes. "What? What am I to do?" she whispered, her voice trembling. But he gave no answer. Without a word, he turned his back and walked toward the train. No goodbye, no backward glance. He abandoned her there, penniless, without refuge, at the deserted station. The pain of betrayal crushed her heart, leaving her standing, motionless like a statue carved in grief. At that moment, an old wagon pulled up. A man stepped down, Thomas, a widowed cowboy, rough in appearance, but with a gentle heart. By his side was his young daughter, Lily, a 5-year-old with wide, curious eyes. Thomas and Lily lived alone on a small ranch, and though he had done his best, Thomas knew his daughter longed for the love of a mother she had lost too soon. While her father was busy with supplies, little Lily noticed Clara. The girl, innocent and without judgment, saw the sorrow etched into the stranger's face. She had never seen anyone look so lonely. Quietly, she walked up and slipped her tiny hand into Clara's trembling one. Clara, drowning in anguish, lifted her eyes and met the gaze of a child who did not condemn her. Lily said nothing. She only smiled. And then, in the softest whisper, came a single word Clara had never expected to hear: "Mama." The child's voice was like a miracle, shattering the silence and piercing through Clara's despair. Tears fell from her eyes, not of shame, but of release. Thomas, startled by his daughter's boldness, stepped closer. But instead of scolding her, he saw the honesty in her gesture and the agony in Clara's eyes. He understood his daughter longed for a mother, and this woman longed for a home. "You've been left behind, haven't you?" Thomas asked, his voice deep but gentle. "Do you have anywhere to go?" Clara could only shake her head. Thomas turned to his daughter. "Lily, would you like this woman to be your mother?" The little girl nodded eagerly, her face glowing. Thomas looked back at Clara. "I am not asking out of love," he said firmly, his words simple but filled with sincerity. "I am just a man who lost his wife, raising a daughter who needs a mother. Come to my ranch. Together we'll build a family. Will you?" It was not romantic, but it carried a weight that no poetry could. It was an offer of survival, an acceptance of shared wounds. Would Clara dare to stake her life and the life of this child, clinging to her, on the word of a stranger? The proposal hung in the air, heavy as a storm cloud before rain. It was not a tale of passion, it was a bargain, a bare promise of shelter. Clara, her heart shattered, looked at Thomas. He was not like the men of New York, polished and cruel. He was plain, earnest, desperate. "I am not asking out of love," his words echoed. It was no fairy tale. It was an exchange. She would gain a home, and he a mother for his child. But could she bear that weight? Could she live up to the faith of an innocent child? Clara looked down. Lily's wide eyes still shone with trust, her tiny fingers clutching Clara's hand. Once more the girl whispered, "Mama." The words shattered every wall within Clara. She knew she could not refuse. Not a child's yearning, not a father's desperation. Drawing a deep breath, Clara spoke. I will go with you." Her voice shook, but her resolve was clear. Thomas said nothing more. He only nodded, and a faint smile softened his weathered face. It was not the smile of victory, it was the smile of a man who had found his last hope. Lily squealed, throwing her arms around Clara's legs. "Mama," she cried, and for the first time in her life, Clara felt a strange, warm light within her. Thomas led them to his wagon. He helped Clara and Lily climb aboard. He spoke no word of her past, of the cruel letter, of the betrayal. He only mounted his horse and took the lead. The journey to his ranch was short, but to Clara it felt like a passage into another world. She sat on the wagon watching the wide plains, the snowy peaks, the endless sky. For the first time she felt peace. Not judgment, not shame, only release. When they arrived, the sun was sinking. His wooden house stood tall, solid beams, and a chimney puffing smoke into the cold air. Cattle grazed in the yard, and a strong horse waited by the fence. Everything here was steady, enduring, like the man himself. Thomas helped them down. He held Lily's hand as the child ran to his side, laughing. "Papa, we have a mama now," she shouted, and Thomas's eyes turned to Clara, filled with gratitude. Inside the house was tidy but bare. A single photograph hung on the wall, a young woman, golden-haired, blue-eyed. His late wife. Clara's heart ached with sorrow and respect. She could never replace her. "I could never take her place," Clara whispered. Thomas shook his head. "I do not ask that of you," he said softly. "I only ask you to be Lily's mother, and I believe you will be a good one." His words lit a flame in Clara's heart. This marriage would not begin with love, but it could begin with respect, with compassion, and with choice. And that was enough. The early days were quiet. Clara and Thomas lived as strangers, bound by a single purpose: Lily's happiness. He never commanded her, never forced her hand. He sought her opinion, respected her choices, and she in turn did not intrude on his work, but stood beside him, ready to share his burdens. At night, when Lily slept, they sat by the fire. One evening, Thomas broke the silence. "Clara, I know what happened at the station. I know what they said." She froze. She thought he hadn't known. "I don't care what they think," he said. His eyes met hers. "I care about what I see." "And what do you see?" she whispered. "I see a brave woman," he answered, "who crossed a continent for a new life. I see the woman who saved my daughter. I see a mother." Tears welled in Clara's eyes. For the first time, she was seen not for her size, not for her shame, but for her strength. And she knew in that moment she had made the right choice. Winter came, fierce and unforgiving. But within Thomas's house, warmth burned, not just from the fire, but from something greater. Clara was no longer a woman abandoned on a platform. She was a mother, a partner, and the heart of a home. Love had not been promised, but slowly, naturally, it grew from respect, from kindness, from survival. And Clara knew she had not just found shelter. She had found a man who saw her true worth. She had found a family. In the end, Clara discovered something she had been denied her whole life. Not perfection, not admiration, but a home where she was wanted simply for who she was. The shame she carried from the station slowly faded, replaced by the laughter of a little girl who called her mama, in the steady presence of a man who chose kindness over appearances. Perhaps that is the lesson her story offers. To us, the world will always find reasons to judge, but love, real love, sees past the surface. It notices the quiet strength, the resilience, and the gentleness that others overlook. And sometimes the family we long for finds us in the unlikeliest of moments, when we believe hope has already passed us by. As you listen to Clara's story, maybe you recognize a part of your own journey, the seasons when you felt unseen, or when words left scars deeper than wounds. But remember, healing is possible, and belonging is never too late. If this story touched your heart, I invite you to join our growing family here at None. Wild West Saga. Subscribe to the channel so you won't miss the next tale of hope and redemption. Share this story with someone who needs encouragement today. And I'd love to hear from you. Would you like to see what comes next for Clara, Thomas, and little Lily? Or hear more stories of second chances like theirs? Leave me a comment below, because stories heal best when they're shared just like love.